Simply by asking the right questions and trusting your intuition and your past subconscious learnings can support you finish and complete a task a lot more efficiently and a lot faster. Some of these questions can be, what's the fastest way for me to finish this task? What's the problem that I'm actually solving, and how would I go about solving it? Finally, if I had 5 minutes to finish this task, how would I go about starting it? According to Cambridge Dictionary, the meaning of productivity is the rate at which a company or country makes goods, usually judged in connection with the number of people and the amount of materials necessary to produce the goods. To rephrase this so that it relates more to personal productivity. Productivity is our personal output in relation to the work we are responsible for. And examples of these could be, if you work within sales, could be a certain amount of outbound cold targets you have in a month. If you're currently a student, it might be a certain amount of modules you want to get by, or an amount of certifications you want to acquire within a year. Finally, which is more relatable, a certain amount of tasks that we want to finish by the end of the week or by the end of the day. So the story of how I got into productivity stems from really my love of personal development. And one of the first books I read on the topic of productivity is a book by Atul Gawande called The Checklist Manifesto. Applying a simple concept of creating a checklist for your tasks can make that whole process a lot easier to action and a lot faster to action. So why should you listen to me? Apart from balancing multiple projects, including working a full-time job, building an agency, i.e. a business, freelancing on the side, building my YouTube channel and social media presence, working out 3 times a week, and at the same time still studying and upskilling within digital marketing, to be able to sustainably do that at least in the past 2 years and earning 6 figures a year. The idea of productivity is really at the top of my list. Some of these concepts and advice that I'll share in the video will help you in your journey, and some of these might be quite radical at first, might be quite difficult to digest. And on that note, let's begin. So the first thing I do in the morning is always journal, but journaling can give you the ability to be able to express your initial thoughts first thing in the morning. It's a way to organize your day. It's a process of organizing your thoughts on paper. Seeing your thoughts visually on paper has many benefits. It helps you understand it a lot better. It helps you prioritize those thoughts. It's a lot easier for those thoughts to then be pushed out to its next step, which is to turn it into something that you can action. I wouldn't recommend using a device to journal. There's something about having a physical pen and paper in front of you and the physical act of writing your thoughts down that, for me personally, feels a lot more natural, and I tend to get better ideas when I use pen and paper versus a digital notepad. The best time to journal is really first thing in the morning. That's when your brain is the most active. That's where usually a lot of your great ideas will come about. So this next point is more conceptual. It's the idea of asking yourself if you're actually being productive or you're thinking you're being productive. And there's quite a thin line between the two. There's a trend of people loving the idea of creating to-do lists, believe it or not. Productivity isn't necessarily about how many tasks or to-do lists you've ticked off. It's about if those tasks are giving you a return on investment. Is there value from doing that task? Or does the value mainly come from the idea of you finishing that task? And this is a concept that's gonna take a while to digest. Whenever you're creating your to-do list or whenever you're going about your day, ask yourself if you're being productive or if you're just thinking you're being productive. Next point is using a project management software and a digital notepad. This is different from when I said there's benefits to using a physical notepad and pen when you're journaling. So this is the second step after journaling. When I'm journaling, I have the left-hand side have my tasks or tasks that I might action throughout the day or the week. And those ideas or potential tasks then transferred over to project management software like Asana. And you can see on the screen how I organize my Asana board. And again, this is not necessarily a tutorial, just an overview of my process. And then for note taking or ideation purposes or storing ideas, I'll use software like Evernote. And there's a great book on the topic of digital note taking. In his book, Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte, he talks about as life gets more complicated and there's a lot more information that's happening, you don't want all that information in your brain. Your brain can't manage storing all that information, being able to utilize that information when it's needed. So by having an external brain, or he calls it a second brain, in this case, a digital notepad, you're able to store a lot more information and you're able to withdraw that information within a couple of clicks. So the next point is the E.S.A.D Framework, which stands for Eliminate, Simplify, Automate, and Delegate. And the framework's pretty simple. It's you asking yourself each of those segments. So if you look at your task or to-do list or your project, ask yourself, what are the things you can eliminate? What are things that are unnecessary? What can I simplify? In this case, if there's a big task, how can I break them into smaller chunks that are more actionable and that are more realistic? What can I automate? Now, this is a great question to ask as we get into artificial intelligence. A lot more automation is going to be a theme that you'll hear more and more often. Now is the best time to ask yourself, what are aspects of your life you can automate? Not just in work, but your personal life too. In my world within digital marketing, a software like ChatGPT is a great way for me to automate aspects of my role, whether it's ideating a subject line for an email. Rather than me spending hours thinking of those tasks, I can utilize ChatGPT's knowledge and automate that process, saving me a lot of time and energy. And the final part of the framework is asking yourself, what can I delegate? Now, this part, ideally, you have a team member or someone you're managing. It could be a partner, it could be a friend, but it's looking at your tasks, thinking of what are tasks that I can delegate to someone else, or maybe train someone to be able to do it to save me time and energy so I can focus on tasks that require more effort and require more time, which I can't necessarily always delegate. In the next couple of seconds, I'm going to extend some of these points in a more practical way. Next is the benefits of having multiple breaks throughout the day. And the way I use this is having daily walks around lunchtime between 12 and 2 p.m. In the book Hyper Focus by Chris Bailey, he talks about the benefits of having breaks throughout the day as a way to reset your brain's energy levels and focus levels. And once I learned about this concept, it's something that I live by quite religiously. Between 12 and 2 p.m. I take daily walks. Within the walk, I generally don't bring a device. I don't bring my phone with me. I'm present when I walk, just focusing on my breathing. It's a great way for me to almost recalibrate my day, like a reset. What I really enjoy about walking, apart from the break itself, is that for some reason when I'm going for a walk, I tend to get a lot more interesting ideas, and I'm able to expand on those ideas on the go as I'm walking. It almost feels like a creative process. The next point is focusing on your hardest tasks in the first segment of your day, preferably early in the morning when no one has the ability or permission to disturb you. There's a great book on this topic by Brian Tracy, and his book's called Eat the Frog if you're interested. Within the first 2-3 hours of your day, apart from journaling, apart from organizing and setting up your day, you want to be able to focus on the hardest task at the beginning. That's when your brain's energy and focus levels are at its peak, so it makes sense to focus on more difficult tasks. So there's a great phrase that I like to use, which is kill the beast first thing in the morning, which I might have stolen from an author by the name of Stephen Pressfield. He wrote the book The War of Art, which is another great read in terms of productivity and creativity. One of the greatest benefits of doing the most important task at the beginning of the day is that once you finished it, the rest of the day is just a lot more easier to go through, knowing that you've already killed the beast. The rest of the day is going to be a breeze. Next one is everyone's favorite hobby, which is checking emails. No, I'm just kidding. It's about checking your emails more consciously and preferably at intervals. Now, I personally manage upwards of 8 accounts, including my mom's email. So for me, being able to systemize the way I approach checking emails and replying to emails is very important. So my approach with emails, fairly simple, is make sure that within your email you have folders where you're able to segment which emails are important, which emails are what I call can wait till later, and which emails are absolutely unnecessary. And to that point, if there are any emails where it doesn't provide value to you, or if it's maybe a newsletter you've subscribed to in the past where you don't really read those emails, I'd urge you to either unsubscribe or delete emails. The last thing you want is clogging up your inbox. So my second approach to emails, which I practice quite often, is if I don't believe the email has any value for me, I automatically delete it. I don't even archive it or anything. I'm quite OCD about my inbox. If I start seeing it go above 5 or 10 different emails, I start panicking. So my third approach to emails is checking your emails at intervals. So rather than checking your emails every 5-10 minutes, if possible, check it every hour, every 2 hours. Now, this might not be quite practical, especially if you work in sales or maybe you work in customer service, but if you can apply segmenting times you check your emails, it will be highly beneficial for you, I guarantee it. My final approach to emails is if I do get an email that I don't need to necessarily reply to immediately, again, I'll move that to a specific folder. If it requires a bit more brain work, I'll choose a specific time throughout the day where I bulk reply to these emails that require more brain thinking rather than replying to them individually. Systematize the way you reply to emails. And think about it. If you've got 10 emails that you need to reply to, why not just do it in one go? So the next point is what I call deep work. One of the greatest skills you can have this day and age and for the future is your ability to focus. As I'm sure you'll hopefully agree with, we live in a very distracted world. There's a lot more information coming our way. If we compare our lives compared to the pre-internet, pre-social media, pre-mobile phone days, they had a lot more opportunity to do deep work. But what does deep work actually mean? So deep work is a term and actually a book by an author named Cal Newport. He's a computer science professor. But deep work means a state of distraction-free concentration when your brain works at its maximum potential. And the way I rephrase that from my understanding is deep work is a cohort or segment of time where no one is going to disturb me, and I can completely focus and surrender to what is in front of me, whether that's a task or a project or an ideation process. So a practical way to apply deep work is to first schedule deep work sessions. You don't want to reactively decide randomly throughout the day, I'm now going to decide that this is going to be my deep work. You have to be a bit more strategic and decide when those sessions actually are. You know your schedule a lot better than I do or anyone does. So the first step is deciding when you actually have the ability to do deep work. And second to that is to actually follow that schedule. If you know you have a deep work session between 7 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. in the morning, you got to follow the schedule. Next is probably arguably one of my favorite tips in this video. It's to avoid meetings and small talk if possible. There's something about the corporate world and really bad leaders within the corporate world about loving the idea of scheduling meetings and just being in meetings in general, when the meetings they set up usually have no value for anyone else apart from wasting everyone's time. And there's a great article about this topic by the Harvard Business Review, which I'll link in the video, on how meaningless a lot of team meetings essentially are. I'm not saying you avoid all the team meetings that you're invited to. One of the first questions you ask yourself once you see an invite within your calendar or email is, are you absolutely necessary to be in the meeting? Is there value in you being in the meeting? Do you need to present in the meeting? If the answer to those questions is no, then don't attend the meeting. You should only join team meetings if you personally find it beneficial, if you feel like there's value, if there's an insight that might be interesting for you to learn, if you need to present. And outside of those reasons, you're killing your time. And time is a very precious thing you don't want to lose, especially if you're trying to be productive. The next point is being able to systemize tasks that are repetitive. In fact, a lot of the points or concepts that I share in this video is part of systemizing. So let's actually understand what the term means. According to Cambridge Dictionary, system means a set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network. Now there's another word I like to use, which is the more action-oriented version of systems, systematizing. And what systematize means, according to Cambridge Dictionary, it means to organize something according to a particular system. And in this case, that system is you. But in simple terms, systemizing is a process of looking at the individual parts of your life, whether it's work, your personal life, family, finances, your health, your fitness, and finding a way to interconnect all those different segments so that you can be more productive as a whole, not just in the individual parts, but as an ecosystem. A practical way of doing this is asking yourself, what are segments of my life that I want to be more productive in? And what are aspects of those individual segments I can improve? And then finally, it's turning those ideas into things to actually action and live by. And systems really is a way of living in a way that is more optimized so you can have more output. So the next point is the benefits of caffeine and proper hydration. Now, if you don't know by now, I used to be a barista at Starbucks. And so I consider myself a bit of a coffee expert and aficionado. But anyway, there are lots of studies that talk about the benefits of having caffeine. Now, this is not to say that I want you to rely on caffeine or any other external factor to improve your productivity, but know that caffeine is there to improve your focus when it's necessary. I personally drink coffee not to wake myself up or to improve my focus. It's almost like a self-love process for me when I do it the first thing in the morning. Moving on to hydration. If you've studied your biology, you know that our body is generally made up of 70% water and the brain is made up of 80% water. And if you add the two, hence being hydrated throughout the day and drinking a lot of water is beneficial. and even vital. Being hydrated has lots of benefits, including improved brain performance, more energy. It's great for weight loss management if you're into that at the moment. It helps you regulate your body temperature, and a whole lot more. The next point is that routines are your best friend. The benefits of routines, not just in terms of productivity, but life in general, is quite immense. When you have a routine, the brain needs a lot less effort and a lot less energy when it's actioning a specific task, for example. More importantly, when it knows what it needs to do. An article by Northwestern Medicine states that routines help you manage stress better, you sleep better, you're generally a lot more happier. And from my experience, routines also help you cut out decision fatigue. If you don't know what decision fatigue is, it's essentially the concept that throughout the day, we tend to make worse and worse decisions. And if you're trying to be productive, the last thing you want is you making the wrong decision. So by having a routine, having a system for tasks that are quite repetitive will help you make more right decisions. The next point is the power of listening to light and repetitive music when you're doing your work. According to Effectology, the benefits of listening to light background music is 1, it improves cognitive performance, 2 is it improves concentration, 3 is it increases your energy levels, and 4 increases your mood. If that doesn't excite you, I don't know what will. The way I practically use this is I tend to listen to either classical music or lo-fi beats when I'm working. Post lunch time, when my energy levels are a bit down, I might play a bit of 80s music just to get me back up. The next point is more conceptual. It's understanding whether you're responding to a task or reacting to it. And what that concept comes down to is the idea of being in control. If we're honest with ourselves, most of us are on autopilot throughout the day. And the reason why this happens automatically is it's a way for our brain to conserve energy. So to hack this process, it's quite simple. Taking a break, stopping and asking yourself whether you're in control of your tasks or your tasks are in control of you. Preferably you're in the former. You want to be in control internally so you can have better output and better productivity throughout the day. If we look at the word responding, it's a spin-off from the word responsibility. What it means is to be considerate and deliberate, whereas reacting, on the other hand, it literally means to meet one action with another. It's very immediate and rash. I'll link an article on this exact topic by the growth equation in the summary section below if you're interested in reading. And finally, part of my productivity ecosystem is applying the power of mind mapping. I learned about mind mapping from one of my old bosses when I was starting out in digital marketing. But the long story short of it is that not every single idea that you have necessarily needs to be actioned. There's a lot of benefit into putting that idea down in paper and visually expanding it first. In fact, we make better decisions when we're able to visually expand that idea before doing anything with it. What is mind mapping? According to mindmapping.com, a mind map is an easy way to brainstorm your thoughts organically without worrying about order and structure. It allows you to visually structure your ideas to help with analysis and recall. The great thing about mind mapping that it works in terms of output, so if you want to be more productive, but also for input. If you're studying, if you want to take in a lot more information, you can apply mind mapping for that exact purpose too. And if you look at the screen right now, you'll see how I generally mind map for ideas, so you know what a mind map visually looks like. And on that note, that is the end of the video. I know it's quite information packed. Hopefully you've found some value. If you have, leave a like or subscribe to the channel. If you have any feedback, leave them in the comments below. I do massively appreciate you spending some time watching the video. Have a great rest of your day. Peace and love. Out. Okay, break time.